As the resident Jeanne enjoyer, even though I don't think she's worth going for, I still have to make a video talking about Jeanne. Alright, true story at the very beginning of this video. When I was really first getting into Fate, I really enjoyed Fate Apocrypha, but I had to go to work after finishing the entire series. And so I went in that afternoon and I was super bummed out the entire day, and I was too embarrassed to tell people that I was super sad because Jeanne got obliterated at the end of Apocrypha. Yeah, I literally got sad because she got nuked at the very end of the series. Now, I was a bit younger, so don't flame me too hard in the comments, but when I say I'm the resident Jeanne enjoyer, it goes all the way back to when I was watching Fate Apocrypha as a wee lad and getting into Fate. That being said, instead of giving her the normal servant video, I actually wanted to do more of a laid-back evaluation of Jeanne, because I think she's one of those servants that has really come a long way. In fact, when we were getting the video ready and we were kind of going through some stages to kind of make Jeanne look pretty good for the background gameplay, it did kind of dawn on me that wow, this servant really has come a long way. They're kind of like a mix of being a baby version of Castoria, but also budding into something else because of how her second skill works. So I'm gonna break this down in this video as to, I would say normally this is where I say, oh, whether she's worth summoning for or not, but realistically, save your Saint Quartz for a limited servant or a story lock servant, somebody that's not going to spook you on a random banner. Realistically, you can get Jeanne at any point. And if they give us a free 5-star ticket, you can pick her up, and she's actually one of the more solid options. It's really weird to say that picking up Jeanne is actually pretty solid in current year, especially if you're a year 1 player like myself. And I guess to give you a little bit of encouragement, a couple of years back when I had my first FGO account before that got lost to the abyss and it is never going to be coming back, unfortunately, I came back from work one day and I would always do singles on the story banner. And I was having a pretty good day, got back from the boys, after work, we went ahead and got some Burger King. I know, not the best place to be going, but hey, it's what we could afford at the time. And I did a single on the story banner as I was about to go to bed, boom, got Jeanne. Now, I'm not saying to go summon on the story banner, but what I am saying is you can just randomly come upon these servants whenever, you're summoning for something else. Or just really summoning for nothing in particular at all, like I was doing on the story banner. So I would advise not summoning for Jeanne unless you are an absolute huge Jeanne stan like myself. I summoned for her last year when she came back around, and I told people I don't advise you doing this. This is before we knew that she got the really strong buff, and I just wanted her in my Chaldea. So now that I've got that all kind of laid out at the very beginning of the video, let's talk about this new skill that she got and why it kind of changes a lot for her. So usually when a new servant gets a new buff, I will do kind of a blind reaction to it. That way you guys can kind of see my gears turning in my head. You can kind of tell what I'm thinking about it. And when I saw it, I was like, this is really good, but I don't know if it's enough to like really break Jeanne. But I was a bit wrong on that because some people have really started to see some pretty good success in using Jeanne, because just giving the entire party 20% arts, 20% battery, and then refunding 15 stars every turn for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown when you already had a really strong second skill and you already have a really strong functionally baby version of Castoria's NP, which again, I've said this in the past, but if you're copying Castoria, you're doing something right. She's the best unit in the game and definitely the most versatile unit in the game for a reason. And a good couple of years ago, I actually did this series talking about different buffs that different servants can get, and Jeanne was one of them. And if you want to go back to that video, you'll be searching back a decent bit, but if you go back and look at that video, I actually said I would like her to kind of become this pseudo art support. That's before we got people like Zhufu and stuff along those lines, but it is something that I wanted to see her do, and I'm kind of glad that she's going down this line because I think she's really strong as a +1 for your art setups. Sure, you could bring somebody like Zhufu, she's really strong, nobody's denying that, but if you bring somebody like Jeanne, you get a lot more versatility in your party. For one, people don't really talk about this, but her 3rd skill, it's probably the next thing that's going to be getting buffed because it doesn't really do a whole lot, but the bound getting around stun resistance is really strong, giving you not only the ability to protect the entire party with Castoria's NP, but you can also do it with her 3rd skill, and then Jeanne has a way to just stall somebody for a turn, which is already on top of her NP, which again is kind of a baby Castoria NP. And what I mean by that is, instead of solemn defense hits, you're getting party-wide invincibility, but it's for a turn, which does overlap very nicely with maybe you run out of hits on solemn defense, maybe you only get the 1, you're at least still covered for the entire turn with the invincibility. You have another person that can remove debuffs. She offers healing. I know it's not a lot and it's not for very many turns, but she does offer healing, which Castoria doesn't, and instead of attack, I know it's a bit of a meme, but she does give you defense. If you do get higher copies of Jeanne, this does actually start to become a bit substantial. NP1, yeah, 5% defense, who really cares, but once you get to NP2, when you're starting to get 15, 20, 22, 25% defense, if you're lucky enough to get an NP5 Jeanne, that actually does start making your party a decent bit tanky, especially if you can loop the NP. So you can fire it on turn 1 and then fire it again on turn 3, which is really not all that hard to do with her giving herself the battery, having a triple arts deck, which makes it really easy for her to do arts brave chains, and the fact that she's buffing her own NP gain with the arts buff on her first skill, and how this interacts with Castoria, giving everybody 30%, and then even if you don't target the NP gain, the second skill, on the Jeanne, the whole party gets the NP gain buff. So it's realistically not all that hard to do. And then further on top of that, she's reducing an enemy's NP damage by 30% whenever that's incoming. And then on the turn of using the second skill, the enemy has minus 50% defense, but still keeps minus 30% for the next 2 turns after that. I mean, she's just doing a lot. I mean, I'm really glossing her up, right? And I'm saying that she's really good because I do think Jeanne is legitimately a very strong servant the more and more that I've used her post buff. But I really hope I'm not glossing her up so much that someone's like, I gotta go summon for this servant immediately. What she is for me is a very strong servant that technically anybody can get when they roll for, say, the limited servant that they want to get. Say you're going for someone like Kukulkan, or even after she gets her buff, maybe you're rolling for the new Dantes, right? And you happen to get spooked by Jeanne. That's just a really good servant that you get. It's in the same way that unless you absolutely love Nido Chrysalter, I don't think she's worth rolling for because we have better limited options that are more rare that do her job but better. But what Nido Chrysalter is a very pretty decent good looper that anybody can happen to come across when summoning on any banner, or just able to pick them up for free whenever we get the 5-star tickets. And I think that's where she excels. I always talk about the floor of the game, where I talk about what the minimum is for the game, or the lower power levels, right? And I always talk about free-to-play servants raising that floor. And what I just mean is that it makes the game a bit easier to kind of get into and easier to clear, right? And easier to get through content. And Jeanne is one of those characters that I think as a 5-star that's technically available anywhere and can technically be free if you want to count the 5-star ticket, I think she is one of those servants that can raise the floor of the game. Same thing for somebody like Tamamo. You happen to randomly come across a Tamamo on a banner, you're absolutely balling out. I mean, the same thing also applies to, say, somebody like Waver, right? Like, these are servants that if you don't choose them for your Fuyuki ticket, because maybe you didn't get a guide like me to come along and be like, hey man, you should really be picking up Waver, he's gonna make your life really easy. Maybe you go for somebody like Mordred, because you, just like me, came off of Fate Apocrypha, and you're like, dude, I heckin' love Mordred. Or maybe you also, I don't know why we're doing all Apocrypha servants, but maybe you also go for Achilles, right? You heard he's pretty decent in the game, and you're like, you know what, let me go for that guy. Which, while I don't think is the correct thing to do, quote unquote, you guys can see the air quotes I'm doing right now, but I don't think it's the correct thing to do. I think it's always fine to go for a servant you enjoy more than others. I mean, when I was getting into other games like Arknights or Blue Archive, when I was starting those, I just kind of grabbed whoever I liked, regardless of if they were good or not. I didn't check any tier lists. I was like, I just want to get this character. Was normal W, not the W Ultra, but I get in a couple of, days here over on Arknights, but was the normal W the character to go for? Probably not. I mean, she's probably not the most broken character in the game, but I just really like W, so I went for her. Same thing in Blue Archive. I know Sayori's apparently really good, but I was like, dude, this character looks sick. I'm gonna be going for this one. And that turned out to be the right decision, or one of the right decisions, but you know what I'm saying. I can relate to players starting a new game and just going for somebody that's good. I mean, I'm starting out Zenless Zone Zero. I've been playing for the past like month or two, and the person I'm really trying to headhunt right now is Grace. I don't care if she's not the best person you can get from that like free-to-play banner thingy. She's the character I want the most, so I'm gonna be picking her. This is all to say that characters like Jeanne, being as good as they are, being these characters that you do not have to summon for and theoretically will randomly get on your account at some point, really do help out accounts. Again, they also help people out that maybe just go for Jeanne because she's the cute blonde girl, and then she happens to actually be really good. I think it also helps in those scenarios as well, and it alleviates a little bit of the pressure on, should I always go for Waver? Because somebody like Jeanne, say you do some pulls whenever you start your account, and you pull somebody like Summer Ibuki or something, you pull some really crazy arts unit, maybe you get the Dioscuri twins, you get really lucky. Or on your beginner GSSR, I think Nero Bride's on there, you pull somebody like her, you can also go with Jeanne, and you functionally have a baby Castoria setup. In which case, going for Jeanne is probably better than going for Waver because she offers the additional 20% battery, but more importantly, does give you that big arts buff, which is really important for doing your looping. And then she can also be really good on wave 3 for just neutering the enemy's defense to let you just slam them into the ground. It's kind of nice that there's not always going to be this correct answer of you must pick Waver. If you don't pick Waver, you're a dummy, because now we're getting those options where Tamamo's really good, Jeanne's really good, and I'm very excited to see where just not Jeanne goes in the future, but all these other characters that are on there. So evaluation-wise, is she good? Yeah, she's really good. She's real strong. But does that mean you should be going and summoning for her? Not unless you have the quartz to spare. And let me tell you, as the boy Shiro said once to Gilgamesh, King of Heroes, do you have enough Saint quartz? And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace, late guys.